Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some interesting poetry from Latin America. Today's poem is all about language. It is The Ancient Song of My Blood by Humberto Ak'abal. For those who don't know, Humberto Ak'abal is a Guatemalan writer who died in 2019, living quite a bit of time. He was Keish Mayan. I believe is the specific term for his indigenous roots. And he wrote about such things like his Mayan heritage, especially in his poetry. You see a little bit of that in the poem that I'm going to be talking about today, but also writing about his experience in Latin America and whatnot, and gaining quite a bit of renown in Latin America, Europe, and America. Although I have to say this is the first time that I've heard of this poet, but I'm very much glad that I managed to find him, because when I first started doing Poetry Thursday, I wanted to find those very interesting authors who I might not have heard about, but have garnered some notoriety and are especially from those vulnerable indigenous populations, so I can amplify their voices. And I'm glad that's precisely who I found here today. He also won a number of awards for his work, which is always excellent. So without further ado, let's talk about this poem. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. The Ancient Song of My Blood. I did not drink Spanish from my mother's breast when I came into the world. My tongue was born among the trees, and it tastes like earth. The language of my grandparents is my home. If I use this language that is not mine, I use it as a brilliant key to open doors to another world where words have another voice and another way of connecting with the earth. The language is the memory of pain, and I speak it without fear or pain because my ancestors bought it with their blood. In this new language, I will show you my flourishing song. I will bring you the flavor of other regrets, the color of other joys. This language is just one more key to sing the ancient song of my blood. And so that was the ancient song of my blood. In terms of analysis, there is a little bit worth talking about with this poem. It's pretty short, but I think Humberto Ak'abal presents a lot within that short amount of time. In terms of narrative, I think it's easy to see what Ak'abal is talking about. No strict narrative, mainly just talking about language, how he doesn't drink Spanish, like this wasn't given to him like innately. He had to learn it over time, and it's very much reflective of the people who came before. And he uses it as a key to open up another world. Its language is a memory of pain and whatnot, and he talks about how it can bring joy and allow you to see in other places. It's just it's part of the ancient lineage that he's talking about here. So that's the main essence of the narrative there. But you can see how he feels about Spanish as he goes along with this poem. He says, "My tongue was born among the trees, and it tastes like earth." Noting how Spanish is pretty old, and it's or at least his version of Spanish, because as I noted before, he's Mayan, so he might not be speaking Spanish from Spain. He might be speaking Mayan Spanish, kind of a mixture, and so it comes from the trees, the places where the Mayans kind of originated from. He also says, if I use this language that is not mine, I use it as a brilliant key to open doors to another world where words have another voice and another way of connecting with the earth. Again, kind of bringing back how his language allows him to better understand nature and what's going on around him, maybe better so than other languages. And he says, in this new language, I will show you my flourishing song. I will bring you the flavor of other regrets, the color of other joys. And there you see like how he can, like he's going to talk a little bit about regrets. He's going to talk about joy. There's a lot of mixture that you can highlight in this particular language because language is, of course, flexible. But what's also interesting is given that he is part of the Mayan, and the Mayans were kind of broken up as a culture by the time the Spanish came around because of the what's the word for it? The sort of cultural breakdown or something like that. Like an event happened in their civilization, which was bad, and as a result, they were no longer really held together, but kind of fractured and whatnot. And so when the Spanish did show up, like they still treated, the Mayans how they treated the Aztecs and the Incans and everyone else. Like it wasn't a good time. And so, there was that colonization and subjugation that they felt, and that they might still continue to feel as minorities in Mexican or Guatemalan, in this case, society. And he notes, this language is the memory of pain, and I speak it without fear of pain, because my ancestors bought it with their blood. And so kind of noting the connection there, that maybe over time, this language has become kind of an indicator of pain. Because if you spoke it among the Spanish, who were definitely trying to get you to speak their version of Spanish, they might have punished you a little bit more. And so there's always going to be that connection of pain, that connection of colonialism. But it's important to remember, the language and carry it on, because the ancestors bought the ability to speak it with their blood. That they fought for you to celebrate your culture. And it's important to carry on that proud tradition, and so that their sacrifices weren't in vain. And so within this poem, it's very easy to see, Humberto Ak'abal's connection not only to nature, but with his people and the history of his people. And so that was The Ancient Song of My Blood. Those are my thoughts on that poem by Humberto Ak'abal. If you have anything to say in the comments below, let me hear from you. I really enjoyed this poem. I'm going to put a link to it in the description. I wasn't able to really find a strict English translation because a lot of his works were written in Spanish. But I did find an interesting website that I can link to that talks a little bit more about his works. If you have anything to say, let's talk about it in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about Poetry Thursday, or this poet, or this poem if they don't already know about it. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and language-based travels. Farewell.